You may think nothing is quick and easy when it comes to making characters with 3D pen, but there are ways to make it easier and quicker. Like forming parts over clay support, using beads for eyes instead of making them, and using textures that look like fur that you don't have to smooth and sand. So let's look into how to make things easier, one body part at a time. You can simply trace your circle pattern by hand, but your circles will be way rounder and quicker if you trace some circular object. In this case, 1.5-inch washer. Not to mention, tracing the circles will conveniently make all the curves the same, if that's what you need, whether you need them for the eye level or the profile view. Tracing 3D objects from clay support may sound like an unnecessary extra step, but it saves time in the long run and gives you the ultimate control over the shape you want. Some clays work better than others for this purpose. I have a separate video on pros and cons of different clays in the description. There are 3 types that work the best, and we'll be using all of them in this video. The sculpt and mold clay made by Hasbro, the same company that makes Play-Doh, will sculpt the best detail from the clays that I tried. So let's start with that. Divide the ball in half, horizontally and vertically. The horizontal will become the eye level and the vertical the profile. As another time saver, I will use commercial black beads for eyes. I made a video a while back on 6 ways to make eyes, and this one wasn't even in there. The link is below if you want to see how much time you're saving by not doing any of that. I recommend getting beads that are heat-proof, like stone or glass beads. Black onyx works well. If you don't have a pattern with a profile, or any pattern at all, just wing it and design the face in clay any which way you like. Once you connect the eye level and the profile to the main outline, it will become immediately apparent what is still missing, and you can resolve that with a little extra clay to have it symmetrical on both sides. Make sure you clear the original profile outline before you start tracing the shape, so you have something to attach the network to. And then just trace it. Another time saver is using a purposefully textured surface that you don't have to smooth and sand. It obviously doesn't work for every project, but if you are making a furry animal, it works perfectly. We'll look at how to create this texture more closely in the next segment. One of the advantages of working over a clay support is that you can make the first layer over a pretty minimal network without it collapsing inward when it's being filled. And then you remove the clay and reuse it. The Sculpt and Mold Play-Doh brand is a little stickier than regular Play-Doh, but it's easier to sculpt with it. And it never hardens, which is an advantage if you need to work on your project over multiple sessions. The clay comes out pretty easily, but occasionally You may need to dig out the residue with a pen, especially from tight corners. Now for the other half of the head. Make sure that the proportion of the face and the skull are the right size for each other, which is easy to see if you work on transparent surface, like a plexiglass sprayed with matte acrylic finish, for example. Video on different work surfaces is in the description. Now for the promised details on the fur texture. Move the pen in kind of a stippling motion, bobbing slightly up and down, kind of how a needle on a sewing machine moves. Attaching the plastic to the network strands and to what is already there, adding one continuous layer. Never poke the tip of the pen into the clay itself so you don't clog your nozzle. Now it's time to test how the two halves fit together and place some registration marks on both sides to mark where the neck will be. But don't attach it yet. There are a few things that need to be done first. This kind of texture usually leaves a few holes here and there that you might want to close up first, and that can be done either from the inside or the outside. I'm planning to show you both ways, but let's start with the inside fix. This time I will use the foam clay. Another advantage of the clay support is that it prevents the outer shell from accidentally deforming if you need to add additional plastic layer to the inside, which is exactly what we need to do to fix those holes. You can use the same color or even a different one if you have a lot of holes. You will get kind of a speckled look. The foam clays work well for this because they are more non-stick and therefore come off very easily. Now let's make sure all the other parts you need to attach from the inside are in, like the nose. Before the heads get sealed, there is a last chance to secure the eyes to the inside and also attach the nose from the inside. If you make the nose in advance, you will be able to leave a strategic hole for it right from the start, but as you will see shortly, it can also be done later. The plastic won't stick to raw wood, so let's put some masking tape on. There are never enough ways to make eyes or noses, so here is one more way. Insert some straightened filament into the hole and cut it so it sticks out just a little. The idea here is to work the plastic into the desired shape as it comes out hot out of the pen before it has a chance to solidify. And if you fail to get it as perfectly smooth as you intended, you can always remelt it with a heat gun and keep shaping. Once you are happy with it, here is how you mount the nose if you didn't plan from the beginning. When everything that needed to get done on the inside is done, it's time to join the face to the back of the head. can build the ears over the head seam. I am using the sculpt and mold clay again, but any of the 3 clays in this video would work for this. So use what you have and like. Make sure the ears end up the same shape and size, and of course, leave an opening to remove the clay in the end. To make a support again to fill the ears with a layer of different color. This time I will use the 3rd clay that works well for 3D pen supports. And that is regular good old-fashioned Play-Doh. Again, I will smooth the plastic right away as it comes out of the pen, as in the instant smoothing video. The link is in the description, as you might expect. Sculptors and potters have been using turntables forever to have a quick access to all sides of the project. And it so happens that it's also a perfect tool for working with 3D pen. You just need to attach a 3D pen friendly surface to it. fussing over your sculpture, it's time to trace it with the 3D pen. Starting with its footprint where the shape meets the work surface. To this line we'll attach all the rest of the structure. The best feature of the clay support is that it allows you to create very precise curves, both convex and concave, that are the right shape in the right place, allowing you to get the exact shape that you just made in clay. First, run the lines along where the shape changes in significant ways, and then subdivide it into thinner stripes that will be easier to fill. At this point, I will remove the top where the head needs to fit in and check how that is going to work before I remove the clay. Almost done, except for closing up the base, which is actually completely optional if you want to save time. But it does make for a more finished sculpture. I am planning to attach a piece of ironed white veneer that I made earlier to the bottom. If you need to know how to make that, the link to that video is also down below. I know, I promised no smoothing, grinding or sanding, but you do that only to the base seam and not all over the surface of the whole project like with some other methods. And remember, the base is optional, so you can get away with not doing any of that. Finally, time to join the neck, and remember I told you earlier that you can also fix any holes in the texture from the outside. So I will do that on the body, because if I wanted to fix the holes from the inside, like I did on the head, I would have to have done that before I attach the base to the body. And we are done with the quick cat. Maybe not as quick as you might expect, but definitely quicker than by some other methods. Clay support is my favorite technique for small-scale sculpture. Here are 2 projects that also use it, if you want to see it applied to different situations. So until next time, go and make something.